Ever walked into your local synagogue and felt like this presence? And I don't just mean that quiet hum before a service starts, but something, I don't know, bigger, older.
Yeah, yeah, you can get that feeling.
It's like these places hold more than meets the eye.
Right.
Right. Which is what today's deep dive is all about.
We're going deep into the idea that synagogues, especially now while we're in exile, they're not just places to pray, but sanctuaries in microcosm.
Like little echoes of the Beis Hamikdash itself.
Exactly. And we're incredibly lucky to be working with some fascinating teachings from the Lubavitcher Rebbe on
Oh,
this.
we're talking excerpts from his talks, even glimpses into his teachings on the Holy Temple in transit.
Yeah.
We're going all in. But let's start simple. If I said a synagogue is like a mini temple, what comes to mind?
I think for a lot of people, it's the structure they picture first. Like, are we building a smaller version of the temple? But the Rebbe, he takes it way deeper than that. He talks about how the divine presence, sure, it's everywhere, but it becomes especially focused in places of Torah learning, halakhic discussion.
So we're really wrestling with Jewish law, with understanding Jude's will.
Exactly. It's like, remember how in the temple, the Sanhedrin, that highest court of Jewish law they'd convene?
Yeah.
That gathering of minds, debating, interpreting. That's part of what made it a focal point for holiness.
And even after the temple's destruction, that energy, it didn't just disappear. It's like it had to find new vessels.
It's powerful. The Rebbe draws this connection to Ezekiel 11:16. It talks about how even though the Jewish people are scattered, Jude will be for them a small sanctuary wherever they go. The synagogues, they embody that.
Okay, but here's what gets me. Isn't GD already everywhere? So why this need for a specific sanctuary to feel that presence?
Ah, you see, that's the key. It's not about GD's absence or presence, really. It's about levels. Levels of manifestation. Think of it like this. A single ray of sunlight.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Everywhere that light touches, it's illuminated, right? But then take that same ray, focus it through a magnifying glass.
Whoa, you get that intense heat, right? Like a beam of light, far more powerful.
Exactly. And that's what synagogues become. Through Torah study, through prayer, through those actions, they become the magnifying glass. Especially in exile, it's how we tap into a deeper level of Jeedliness.
It's making that connection so much stronger.
Exactly.
Which brings us right back to this sanctuaries and microcosm idea. It's not literally about rebuilding the temple brick for brick somewhere else. It's about capturing that essence, that connection.
And it's fascinating how much this resonated, particularly within the Shabbat movement. There's a story about a Chassid, just a child, and he was told that 770, the Rebbe's synagogue in Brooklyn, that was their Beis Hamikdash.
Wow. They're Jerusalem in exile. I can see how, especially being so far from that historical land, that idea would be really powerful.
Absolutely. And even within that address, that 770, the Rebbe found another layer to unpack. Because in Hebrew, that number, it represents the word breakthrough, peretz.
Wait, hold on. So we've got many temples, exile, and now the Rebbe's HQ is literally numbered breakthrough. I'm seeing where this is going, but spell it out for me.
It's not just coincidence. The Rebbe connected this directly to the concept of the Messiah himself.
Okay, now that's a deep dive, but how does the Messiah fit into this whole numerical puzzle?
Well, think about the name of the Messiah's ancestor, Peretz. His name, in Hebrew, shares that same root as breakthrough, breaking free from limitations, this idea of ushering in a new era.
So we've got 770, breakthrough, Peretz, the Messiah. I'm starting to see these threads coming together. But what makes the Rebbe's synagogue having that address more than just an interesting coincidence?
That, my friend, is where things get really interesting. It's like the Rebbe really emphasizes how this breakthrough connection, it's not just about waiting around for the Messiah to show up in some far-off future, It's about recognizing that potential for breakthrough right here, right now, within each of us.
Okay, now you've got me hooked. How do we go from a synagogue's dress in Brooklyn to these personal breakthroughs? Lay some Rebbe wisdom on me.
It's kind of woven into like the very fabric of how we live Jewishly, Let's even just take the number 7 as like an example.
The fact
Or
that 7.
multiple of 7.
Exactly. And 7, come on, it pops up everywhere in our traditions.
7 days of creation, 7 blessings under the chuppah. We could go on and on.
We could, but it's more than just like how many times it shows up.
Yep.
7, it has this like qualitative thing going on, especially when you dig into Kabbalah. It represents this drawing down of spiritual energy, the divine presence coming into the physical world.
Okay, so 770 being this potent multiple of 7, it's almost like what, an amplifier for that energy? Exactly. It's like this beacon, but broadcasting way beyond those physical walls, sending out that breakthrough message. And remember, this isn't just about the Rebbe synagogue, right? Every single synagogue, because it's this miniature temple, it's tapping into that same energy, that potential for connection.
So it's not just about the building itself, it's what, like, the intention behind it.
Yeah.
The actions we're doing inside. That's what creates the conduit.
That is, I think, a really beautiful way to put it, because it reminds us that holiness isn't this far out there concept. It's something we cultivate through our actions, through our choices, how we show up in these spaces.
Which, I mean, it makes me think about what happens to these miniature temples when the actual temple gets rebuilt.
Mm.
When the Messiah comes, do they just, like, disappear,
Yeah.
become irrelevant?
Well, that's where the Rebbe's teaching on, and it's a good one, the Holy Temple in transit. He envisioned a time when, during the Messianic age, synagogues, they don't vanish. They get reestablished around the Third Temple in Jerusalem.
Wait, hold on. Seriously, like, physically picked up and moved? That's next level.
It's an image, right? Imagine Jerusalem, it's the central hub of holiness, and it's just radiating outward.
Yeah.
And surrounding it are these synagogues, each one representing their own community, but all connected back to that central source.
Like this crazy spiritual ecosystem. Each piece unique, but part of this bigger picture.
And what's beautiful about it is it's not just about everyone going back to that one spot of land, but about the elevation of
Yeah.
everything. Like imagine that holiness, that connection just permeating everything.
It's a powerful thing to imagine. But, like, on a practical level, what does that even look like? What would it mean for, like, the average person, me, to be living in a world where the temple's holiness is just, like, everywhere?
That's the question, isn't it? The Rebbe used to say, we're not waiting for the Messianic age. We're living in what comes right before it. Every act of kindness, every time we really connect with another person, every time we choose to see that spark of divinity.
We're building that world piece by piece.
Yeah. It's not this far-off utopia. It's about recognizing we already have those seeds of redemption. It starts by asking ourselves, like, how would I act? How would I treat the people around me if I knew the Messiah was showing up tomorrow?
Wow, that's a question. And if synagogues are these, like you said, these mini temples, these little blueprints for a redeemed world, what does that make our homes, our communities?
Like microcosms within microcosms. It's kind of a beautiful thought, you
Yeah.
know, that each of us, we can create these little pockets of holiness, these little sparks of that Messianic age, and we don't have to wait.
So we're not just bystanders waiting for something to happen to us. We're participants in how this whole thing unfolds.
And the more we actually embody that, the more we live that way, the more we connect to that Messianic potential inside of us, and that's how we move closer to that breakthrough.
So for people listening, what's, like, the one thing you want them to remember, to carry with them as they enter these spaces?
For me, it all comes down to this. When we walk through those doors, we're not just entering a building, right? It's a sanctuary built on, like, layers of resilience, of hope, of this crazy belief in the power of connection.
Connection to Judea, to tradition, to each other. And somewhere in there, that messianic potential we've been unpacking.
Beautifully put. And, I really think the more we understand that history, the more we appreciate all those sacrifices, all the struggles and triumphs that allowed these sanctuaries and microcosm to exist, the more meaningful our own experience inside them becomes.
It's a reminder to show up with intention.
Yeah.
Not just be there physically, but with awareness,
Yeah.
with gratitude for everything that led to this moment, and with that responsibility to keep it going.
100%. Because these places, they're not frozen in time. They're alive. They reflect who we are as a people.
Mm.
Always rooted in that search for meaning, for connection, for the world made whole. And I think that's something to carry with us, not just as we leave this conversation, but as we move through the world. That potential for redemption, for those sparks of holiness, they're not some far off thing. They're right here, woven into everything. And maybe, just maybe, the more we live like that's true, the closer we get to making it real.
What a powerful thought to end on. Thanks for taking this deep dive with me today.